Good morning, everyone. Thank you for that introduction. I see a lot of bright faces this morning. I hope you enjoyed Addis Ababa yesterday. How was the tour? It's a beautiful city, right? Okay, so before I introduce our panel, let me just say something very briefly. I'm a journalist from Kenya. And then I decided to move into communication consultancy. In Kenya, we call it Juakali. And then now we are on the verge of launching in January, inshallah, what will be hopefully the first, it's an ambitious venture. It's going to be the first TV station dedicated on matters pastoralists. So we're going to use that platform to tell our stories, to tell our history, to tell our culture, our identity, and everything. So this will be a conversation for another day. So for now, before I go to the topic of discussion this morning, let me bring our panel on stage. I hope they're all here. Let me start with Dr. Tamirat Bekele. A round of applause for him. The reason I'm starting with him is from Ethiopia, although he calls Nairobi his second home. Dr. Bekele is a climate scientist at ICPAC. So for those who don't know what ICPAC is, it's the IGAD Climate Prediction and Application Center. He specializes in climate modeling, season forecasting, and climate risk analysis for the Greater Horn of Africa. His work supports government and humanitarian agencies with actionable early warning, information used to anticipate droughts, heat extremes, and rainfall variability. So as a journalist, he's going to be a key source of information for us as far as early warning and early action is concerned. Oh, you're already here. He's a real Bekele. We know Bekele, the marathon guy. So Dr. Bernard Bett is our next panelist, all the way from Kenya. So Dr. Bett is a senior scientist from Animal Health, ILRI. It's a heavy panel of PhDs, so you're going to help me drive this conversation. It's going to be heavy, I know. So he's a senior animal health scientist at the International Livestock Research Institute, ILRI. He leads research on climate-sensitive livestock diseases, zoonotic risks, surveillance systems, and disease modeling. His work focuses on how climate variability influences disease emergence and developing early warning tools to protect pastoral and livestock-dependent communities in the Horn of Africa. He's widely recognized for his role in strengthening animal health systems and resilience. Next in line is Dr. Guyo Roba. He's not from Ethiopia. You have a lot of Guyos here as well. He's from Kenya. He's the head of ICPALD and a very passionate pastoralist. He serves in different boards. He's served in different organizations that touch on pastoralists. So Dr. Guyo is the head of the Dryland Development Unit within IGAD. He's a leading expert in pastoralism and dryland systems. He has extensive experience in rangeland management, pastoral mobility, cross-border livestock economies, and resilience programming. Dr. Guyo has been part of ILRI before, so I think you're going to catch up with Dr. Bett there. Last but not the least, a very passionate lady. We always told ladies first, right? So I decided to save her for the last because I want to finish on a high. She's Fahima Mohammed, all the way from Djibouti. A round of applause for her, the only lady on the panel. She is going to give us the practical aspects of what we're going to discuss this morning. She's an agri-influencer. I didn't know it's a thing until today. But I've seen her footprints on social media. Very active. You'll see her, the way she's dressed. She's a farmer, believe me. She is a serious farmer in Djibouti. She's now specializing in fodder, and she's a specialist in irrigation. So now that we have a full panel, I think I'm the only missing piece here. So let me go straight to our topic of discussion this morning. It's very straightforward. It's a topic that I'm also very passionate about because I come from the pastoralist region in Kenya. The topic of discussion is livestock in the face or era of climate shocks in the Greater Horn of Africa. Livestock in the era of climate shocks in the Greater Horn of Africa. What a time to have this conversation, because this is a conversation we are having right after COP30 in Brazil. And I decided to look at some of the highlights from COP30, and I didn't like how the livestock issue was framed. Because somehow experts, the global experts, see livestock as a problem rather than a solution. There are actually other experts who are even asking African countries to sort of use plant-based protein other than animal-based protein. So if you're not a pastoralist and you feel like this is a debate that doesn't concern you, it concerns you, if especially you like beef. And in Kenya, we call it nyama choma. So this is something that is very relevant to you. So today we are going to ask key questions here. How do we balance global climate concerns with local realities? What evidence do we need to position livestock as part of climate solutions? And how do we ensure pastoralist voices are heard at regional and global platforms? And finally, what practical actions must we take to protect livestock and strengthen resilience? So let me go straight to our panel discussion. I hope we have all the microphones there. I have two. I think we'll need one more. Sound check, 1, 2, thank you. So, the discussion again, it's all about livestock in the face of climate change. So let me start with Dr. Bekele, because you're in your home ground. So Bekele at IGAD, you have projected growing climatic shocks in the Greater Horn of Africa. Can you just tell us what are we looking at in the next 10 years? Because as a journalist, I've seen firsthand what unpredictable weather patterns do to pastoralists. Sometimes we have floods. After floods, we have droughts, especially what we are facing right now. So how is the landscape like in the next 10 years?
Thank you, Yussuf. At IGAD, our climate models are showing a very clear message. The Great Horn of Africa is entering into a period of more frequent, more intense, and more overlapping climatic shocks. We are seeing a steady warming, a steadily increasing warming trend. The temperature have been increasing by 0.2 to 2.3 degrees Celsius per decade. This may sound too small, but it is driving more heat waves, higher evapotranspiration, evaporations. It's also giving a stress on livestock, on the crops as well, and also in the water system in the region. In the meantime, rainfall becomes more variable, and sometimes predictability becomes a challenge. Our models show a strong swing between climatic extremes. Like in one season, a short-lived intense flood, a prolonged drought in the next season. This climatic whiplash, we call it usually, it's after it's coined by one of our colleagues, becoming more common in the region, which is mostly driven by global warming, ENSO effects, and also the Indian Ocean, warming of Indian Ocean is also affecting us. So what it means for the region is we are facing a mix of climatic extremes. Hotter conditions, more of multi-season droughts, more of severe floods, events, and sometimes these things are happening back to back. So these impacts are already affecting food security, public health, also pastoral mobilities. Obviously, we have seen that. I think our colleagues from IGAD can talk more about it. It is their expertise. Infrastructures are also affected. So in general, the climate outlooks is telling us that there is a rising heat in the region.
Yes.
So variable rainfall and intense extremes in the region.
Thank you for putting that into context for us, Bekele. Now, Dr. Bet, you've heard what Bekele has talked about. He's talked about the climate projections. It doesn't look very good. In terms of disease burden, what is the pattern like? Are we going to see some emerging diseases due to this shifting climate pattern?
Let me break that into maybe 3 ways of describing it. One is we are seeing frequent outbreaks of diseases. Yesterday somebody mentioned Rift Valley fever in dry areas. In the olden days, that disease used to occur every 5 years, following El Nino rainfall patterns. But over the last few years, you have seen it coming out every 1 year, every 2 years. You hear, for example, in Kenya, we had one in 2018, 2020, 2024. So that frequency is increasing, largely because of what Bekele talked about, changing climate patterns. The second thing that also we need to realize is that the modeling also helps us to kind of check what is happening beneath the surface, which we may not be seeing with the naked eye. So things like changing, shifting, spreading of vectors, things like ticks, mosquitoes, tsetse flies, those vectors which transmit diseases are slowly coming out from the, let's say, areas which you know to be dry and hot to the highlands. So you hear these things about now the shifting spatial range of diseases towards the highlands, which previously were not conducive to those vectors because maybe they were cold, but now because of temperature increase, we see those places being conducive to those conditions. Recently in Mombasa in Kenya, we had an outbreak of chikungunya in the coastal region because largely of the same conditions, changing temperature and rainfall patterns. The third thing which I really want to highlight also is, farmers have to do something when there are diseases. They have to use medicine. They have to treat animals. And so I think we are using much more antibiotics, much more acaricides for ticks, much more pyrethrins for mosquito control, and that has a huge impact on food systems. Today you put your animal on acaricides, and the following day it's in the market, it's being sold for slaughter, or you inject. We usually say inject tetracyclines because we use similar medicines like what human medicines do. Penicillins, tetracyclines for treating this frequent occurrence of diseases. And those ones have huge impact in antimicrobial resistance. And at the end of the day, we are exposing ourselves to much more contaminated beef, meat, milk because of increase in disease incidence, making us to act by treating animals and then doing that in a much more frequent manner in a way that then don't allow us to observe those withdrawal periods, and then we expose things to contamination of medicines.
Thank you for that, Dr. Bet. As a pastoralist, I can see things are not very good, maybe in the next decade, but I'm sure we'll try and see if our experts have solutions for that in terms of the right investment. So when we look at the livestock value chain, something that is very important, I keep on hearing in different forums, is something to do with the feed, the animal feed. And apparently, if you look at the latest data, we are literally in a crisis. So I'll ask Dr. Guyo to come in and tell us maybe what are the main drivers of feed scarcity and what can be done in order to cushion livestock farmers in the Horn of Africa. Dr. Guyo.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, I think feed is one of the critical input to livestock. If you're in poultry, 80% of your cost is feed. If you're in dairy, I think it's almost 60%. In extensive systems, slightly different for pastoralists. But I think it just shows how critical feed are. And I think the reason why animals die is not like because of water largely, it's because of the feed, whether it's dry matter or any other kind of nutritious feed. So I think for us in the region, there's new innovation that came. We're looking at the feed balance sheet across the IGAD member states. This is an assessment to see how much of the feed need is met within the country. And the figures in the latest study shows 40% of our annual feed demand is unmet, which basically means that we need to work so much for us to bridge that gap. We need to understand a specific gap within each of the country. I think there are many reasons why we have feed deficit. One, a lot of our livestock feed come from the extensive rangeland systems. Rangeland has been deteriorating for quite a long time, due to combination of factors. One factor is the weak governance. We're not governing our rangeland properly. The system that governs this rangeland is getting weaker. New institutions are coming without capacity, but has legitimacy, but it doesn't have the existence on the ground to enforce governance. So which means our range degradation, no one is working consistently to reverse it. We need to reverse the rangeland degradation as one of the things. But then, shockingly, the other thing that shows is that if you are in forage cereal sector, the cereal sector has certified seed that can be traded across member states. When you come to the grass, the certification, the standardization, the multiplication is not there. If I have a grass from Uganda and I want to trade it in Kenya, then it becomes a contraband, which means the grass seed has border. So it means we cannot develop a private sector that is thriving on seed trading. And then it makes the cost of seed very expensive because you have to smuggle in. You have to pay illegal money and all that. So basically, that contributes hugely to people who can multiply seeds. And the third, actually, is also the trade. Private sector space is very small in this area. If you go to Kenya, let's say, and you talk to Unga Feed and ask them, why don't you establish factory in Marsabit, where I come from? What they tell you is that pastoral areas have seasonal demand. It doesn't create a business case for them to establish pellets factory to feed animals. While people in the peri-urban areas with land restrictions always need feed. So you find in Ethiopia, all the feed processors are either in Shagar, in Bushoftu, in Adama, just the peri-urban of Addis Ababa, because there's a business case for them and they're in for business. So nobody can subsidize. So we need to be very creative in terms of either giving tax holidays, giving other incentives for these processors to come closer to the people. Otherwise, they cannot do business, they'll run out of business. So I think combination of all those factors, weak rangeland governance, system that govern range, seed issue, certification issue, weakness of private sector, all these things are contributing factor to the deficit of 40% annually, which is unmet across member states. Thank you.
Clearly, the work is cut out for IGAD, so that we have some sort of regional, concerted effort to take care of the seeds issue. Next, Fahima. Now, Fahima, we've heard all about challenges. We've seen that the next 10 years don't look very good. And I'm sure our audience here are thinking, what will happen to pastoralists? So just tell us, what are you doing in Djibouti that you think might give us a light at the end of the tunnel? Okay, thank you. But I would like to go with what our doctor just said. Yesterday with FRSP, we had a project and had this story, and I think it will come one day into life. It's seed borderless, means seed borderless within IGAD region. So firstly, I'm here to bring the voices for the people who are in the field, who produce, who nurture. And you have to know also from where I come from, livestock is not only an economic asset, it's dignity, it's food, it's culture, but also is survival. I think for the next 10, not even 5 years, farmers like me, we had to go from cash crop to feed. That's what I did. And when I did, people were like, are you crazy? Stay with your cash crop. And when I say cash crops, like gumbo, like tomatoes, the normal thing, vegetables. I said, no. And I'm going, because why? I'm like 10 minutes from a quarantine area where all the livestock are shipped to, Arab countries. I said, I'm not too far from them. So this is, that's why now I'm trying within our farmers, they could understand. Sure. Yes. And just tell us, there's some time back, did you end up with seeds from India? Can you just tell us that experience briefly? That's the thing I was talking about, borderless seeds. Today in IGAD region, it's really easy to import seed from India, but it's really difficult to import seed from Kenya. Last time I went to Nairobi, I took a lot of seeds, and when I came to the airport, they stopped me. They say, where the seeds are coming from? So same thing, I tried to get seed from France. I came to Djibouti airport, and I could get in with my seed. Why? Because those seeds came, with a certification when I bought it from Paris.
But when I took it from Kenya, there's no certification. I went to a shop. So that's the thing now. How can we have seeds and certify, but also register? I will know who produced it and where it comes from. That's where I'm talking about this project. It's a campaign within IGAD region, with influencer, with journalists, and the name is Borderless Seed.
What a nice name. Thank you, Fahima, for that. So back to you, Bekele. You've given us the climate projections. So before we talk about the required investments that can at least help cushion livestock keepers in the Horn of Africa, talk to us about the early warning and early action. Because as journalists, mostly we tend to cover the early warning. We tell people, get ready, floods is coming, or we're going to face drought. So tell us about that, and how can you connect, or how can different governments and development partners connect early warning to early action?
I think what can I say is nowadays in Great Horn of Africa, IGPAC is getting better in predicting these climate shocks. The challenge comes when to connect these early warnings to early action. So the problem, I think, to align these two things, to me, I think we should work on three things. The first thing, we need a trust and a clear communication to this warning, to the community, to the people. You know, usually the kind of forecast we are producing is more of technical and it's more of probabilistic. Now I'm telling you that there is 65% of chance to rain the next season. So what I'm seeing from media, I'm not confronting you. So the media is echo back this for the community. 65% of chance is going to likely to rain in the next season. What does it mean for the community? How could they understand this? Let me tell you what happened in 2021. I was not at IGPAC at that time. I joined IGPAC like 6 months ago, okay? In 2021, I was in this stakeholder engagement, and some experts from IGPAC present this forecast for participants. Some of them are coming from a farmer community. And finally, when she get a chance, she raised her hand and asked about, now you said 65 people, you said this. I'm a farmer. Is it going to rain? Am I going to plant or not? Just tell me this. This is the kind of information the community is looking for. So I think the media and other enemies who's going to communicate this information, which is coming from technically, they don't need to echo back for us, for technical people who understand that. They should tell the wider audience in a way they can understand that. Let me tell you one which I learned from my mother. I think our house is oriented in the direction like south-north. Now, whenever there is a cloud, based on, maybe I can't put it exactly the direction. According to the house in the front direction, when the cloud is getting darker and coming from that side, she will tell you that that rain is not going to reach here. She's always right, I will tell you. Sometimes we will see that it's coming very closer and it will go back. Sometimes it will come, a very light rain and shower in our village and it goes. But when it comes to in the other direction, she will tell you that heavy rain is coming. She knows from even the cloud. This is the way you are going to tell. When we are telling to this 65-35%, we have to tell the community the way they understand the weather. Okay, now, if I know that there is 60% chance of coming the rain, I will tell that the rain is coming, like my mother, it's coming from this direction. So it's going to be a light rain or something like that.
Yes.
This is the way it should be communicated. The other thing is we need to have a pre-agreed action, action plan, and financing should be there. I mean, early action doesn't wait for a meeting or a financing. When some warning is issued, you are not going to call a meeting to set a budget. It should be there, and everyone should know this playbook, a shared playbook, how to govern with that, and early action should be automatic whenever the warning is issued or the forecast surpasses some threshold value. So the last thing, a strong last mile delivery. That's very important. You know, you have to have deliver this early warning information to the community. Otherwise, early action is not important unless it reaches the community at that level with some in a very fast manner. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Bekele, and thanks for sharing your personal story there. Your mom doing whatever she was doing without the situation room that you have at IGPAC. So, Dr. Bet, in 2022, I believe, Kenya, especially the northern part, the pastoralist region faced, actually, by extension, the Horn of Africa. We experienced one of the worst droughts after about 5 consecutive rains which had failed. And by then, Kenya lost about 2.5 million livestock. Up until yesterday, the government was trying to restock what was lost. So from your perspective, and I'm sure from your research you have the recommendations bit, what are your recommendations as far as what governments need to prioritize to protect livestock health and by extension the climate change impacts in the region?
Yeah, yes, I think the discussions have been happening, especially within the departments of veterinary services across the IGAD region, on the need really to do much more coordinated effort in terms of planning better vaccinations. Because, you know, when you have protected animals, you know, when you're immunized animals, they are stronger to resist challenges from disease, challenges from ill health. So the catch we usually have in these regions is this wide movement. You know, our animals from, let's say, Turkana usually graze in the dry season in Uganda. Animals from the eastern side may move to Somalia. So that coordinated effort in terms of vaccination is really what is needed. Secondly, also, we need to work closely with communities. You know, if we just develop these policies at the higher level without working with them, then we really leave behind people who should be implementing what we are proposing to do. So they should actually also be investing so much in disease control measures so that at the end of the day, they get there. The third is working more on research to develop new technologies for managing these conditions. So I could give you an example of the vaccines that we are developing usually require what we call cold chain. You can't take some of the vaccines to very hot places without, you know, cooling systems around you. And so there's been research to develop vaccines which can actually be sold or even transported without the need for that elaborate cold chain, like PPR vaccination tools. Yeah, so those are the things which, the other thing, we also need to work closely with, you know, climate scientists like, you know, IGPAC and others to really strengthen these early warning signals. And I liked the comment which was made yesterday by one of your colleagues that, you know, an early warning action really determines what thresholds we should be looking at, what actions should be implemented once you reach those thresholds, and what financing do we need to put in place to make sure that we do that. So that coordinated modeling efforts between climate scientists and animal health should be strengthened for early warning signals.
Thank you very much for that. Dr. Guyo, let me take you to the just concluded COP30 in Brazil. I believe Brazil is one of the largest producers of beef in the world. And I'd like to take you straight on the data gaps and evidence gaps and how livestock has been framed globally. There are those who see livestock as a problem, the emissions and everything, and there are experts who are calling on mostly people from the African countries to focus on plant-based protein rather than animal-based protein. Can you just tell us what are some of the gaps? Because from where I sit, I can see a huge gap between what is happening, as we call it, on the ground and what is happening globally.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, I think the COP conversation is very interesting. I've been to so many COPs. I stopped going to COPs, actually. I didn't go to Brazil, but I've gone to 5 other COPs to speak on behalf of the livestock and African pastoralist. So this is how the conversation is. Understandably, livestock is one of the contributors of methane, which is one of the greenhouse gases, which is injurious and also create all these global warming conversations. So what happened is that in the COP, the discussion is how do we mitigate the contribution of methane and other gases in the space. So livestock come through that. Of course, there are the other industrial, oil and other fossil fuel. But the livestock come from that end. The catch is that the footprint of livestock within intensive system or ranch system like in Kyrgyzstan, in Mongolia, in Brazil, in Uruguay where I also worked, is that they collect this information quite strongly because they know the feed combination, they know the type of animal, the size of the animal, and the contribution is very easy. Here, we don't do those things. So, and that data gap means that when Agnes, which is African group of negotiators, goes to the table, they have no data to argue for African livestock. So what it means is that the northern livestock footprint is used on southern livestock. Because of that gap, certainly because of that gap. So, and we haven't done quite structured investment to build this case. As livestock in extensive system graze across large landscape, they have ecological contribution because when animals move in ecology, we call them the bulldozer effect. They move around, they dig the grass seeds in the seed bank. And then the grass diversity is better, the diversity of plants are better, the above ground carbon sink gets better. But those data still remain very conceptual. It is not very practical. So what happened is that we don't have any experimentation across Horn of Africa to look at pastoral livestock contribution to the climate, impact. Because of that, it has so many knock-on effect. At the negotiation, you have the weak negotiation power. When you are writing proposals for the Green Climate Fund, GCF, JF, Adaptation Fund, you have no evidence to argue for this sector. So all of us who design projects, the big projects at JF, GCF, always have the limitation when it comes to defend, because you have to defend the project like a PhD thesis. So they said your weak data point does not allow you to invest in the following. So you see, it stops you from getting the climate money. It also helps you, it doesn't help you to sit on the table to negotiate for your animals. So that data gap is actually a big issue in our region that require consistent research to collect this data, wherever they are in some pilot cases, and build a case. And none of the countries are doing that. We keep on pushing member states to consider this as an important point. I think, to me, that's my practical understanding of that. Thank you.
Thank you for that. You've already said you've stopped going to COPs, but I think the next one is happening in Addis after Turkey. I hope you don't miss out on that.
No, actually, I go to UNCCD COP now, because the UNCCD COP is more relevant for us, for dryland, for pastoralists, and we discuss more close issues to us. Africa rangelands, rangeland flagships, drought. All these issues are very central to that COP, which is happening in Mongolia. International of Rangeland and Pastoralism is happening next year in Mongolia. So we'll still engage the relevant space, but then pull from the other one, because you have no power to speak for the people. Thank you.
That's a real pastoralist speaking. And I always take an opportunity to talk about where he comes from. We share the same county. There's no conflict of interest. I don't work for government, no problem. He comes from Marsabit. And for you to have roughly how Marsabit looks like, picture where Rwanda is. Marsabit is double the size of Rwanda in some balance. That's how big that county is. So, Fahima, we've talked about what you're doing in Djibouti. There are those who talk about farmers. They don't see Fahima in their minds. They see something else. So tell us, how are you trying to bring more people on board in Djibouti? We're going to practice what you're doing. And talk to us about the communication strategy that you're using.
Okay, I started 8 years ago. And when I started, it was really difficult. People did not believe that it's easier for a woman. But we had an idea. We say we want to have like PhD, masters, people who got masters, PhD into farming. And people were saying, why? We respect, farmers who did not do any studies, who never went to school. And some of them are my teachers. But our idea is like to, and how you say, in French, they say redorer le blason. in English, it will be like, who is French speaker here? He's like,
you have French speakers here?
Put the limelight, yes, put the limelight on agriculture. So what I do in my farm, we set up it's like a studio. We set up like camera and everything. I'm in my farm, nice color, nice makeup. I go in the farm and I talk and I say, hello, this is, and few people will come to me and I will say, oh, today we harvest this, and I talk about money. This is agribusiness. This is nothing, like you said yesterday, nothing to do with NGO. I never get help. I got $0 given by NGO to me. I never receive, because this is a business. This is for me a business, farming. It's not about aid. I can accept, like fans, things like that, but never money or funds.
Yes.
Because people on NGO don't like to talk about money. It's funds. And so what we do is till today, I had a chance to set up 76 people into farming. And what I do, I'll fund land for them. I help them to settle. Sometimes I manage. All for free, it's free. And this is, for me, an advocacy. And because when people talk about Djibouti, they see dry land, they see a country who has not a lot of, rain. So for them, farming is, so I show them something completely different. In my country, in 1977, my uncle was the first person to become Minister of Agriculture in 77. I was not born that time. And Djibouti has a like nice area of farming. But what happened, people nowadays, they want to come into Djibouti. Djibouti city and coming, is a rural, and people come from region to come straight to the capital. So people just left, the land. So we had over let's say 30, 50, 100 hectares, abandoned. And so my idea is like how to do, but for the 7 years, now people are, and sometimes people call me and say, Fahima, stop telling people to find lands. We are tired. We don't have enough lands. And that's how it goes. And my biggest dream is like people can see farming as a like workplace. They can see like an office. They can see like where they can actually and take a lot of money. In Ethiopia, is something people know. There's a big, land farming. But in my country, people don't see farming as a way of life. So I stop all my work and I'm leaving from farming. So that's what I do. And we got also a podcast. Yes. The name is 253 Talk. If you can follow us, Seed of Resilience. We put in, there's like 4 languages. It's English, French, Somali, and Afar. And now Arab. Because in Djibouti, we got people who speak Arabic. We got people who speak Afar. We got people who speak Somali like me. And French is, our, national and English. Why? Because we want also the IGAD region, because you have to know also Djibouti, we are like stranded. We speak French. We are all around, people all around us speak English. And so it's also that people who live in the same region will understand, will know what actually is going on. So if you don't know me, my name's Fahima, Farm Girl. You can follow me in Twitter, in LinkedIn, in Facebook. I don't have a YouTube channel yet. So and that's what we do. That's what we do with my
The name
team,
of the podcast is 253
Talk.
253
Yes, the prefix of Djibouti and Talk.
In Kenya we are 254.
And yes, and I would like to...
You'll inspire people in Kenya.
Exactly. And I would like to leave a message to everyone here, for the youth, for the women. Please, if you can get it into farming, if you can get it into farming, please do it. Because firstly, you're not going to lose. If nobody buys something from you, you're going to eat it. You're going to never lose it. So go into farming. And to the parent, I know you love to have, kids, daughters to be like lawyers, journalists, like doctors, but agronomists. Go into irrigation. That's what's missing. Specialists in irrigation, specialists in soil restoration, specialists in seed banks. This is one of the things I'm dreaming. And when I see people say, oh, my daughter, she's just graduated a new lawyer. What she's going to do if you have nothing to eat? Who's going to help if she has nothing to eat? That's what's going to happen to the next 30 years. And I follow what our doctor was saying. I'm a cup septic. I've never been to a cup. I'm a cup septic. I think our region in Africa, we got, we can actually find solution for our own problems. Thank you.
Thank you, Fahima, for that. Clearly, that's a food for thought for the rest of us as we try to be food secure in this continent. Dr. Bekele, you've talked about the projections, you've talked about the heat stress, the impact it has on the livestock. So I know it's difficult to come up with a solution to tackle all this. So how do we strengthen, or what kind of investments are you looking at that are needed immediately to protect livestock keepers in the Horn of Africa?
We are doing both in terms of rainfall and temperature. We speak about that. So heat stress is no longer a distant concern in our region. It becomes rapidly one of the biggest threats in livestock, but the thing is, it is underestimated so far. There is one project we are working with the IGAD, our colleague. So what we are seeing in the region is the heat stress is becoming very prominent, and it becomes a big concern right now. I think we need smart investments and practical strategies to overcome this. The first thing, what we are really encouraging is to improve the water access system in the region. I think yesterday it has been discussed by colleagues from Idrisi. They have been doing this thing for a long period, but we need more now and in the future, because the science is showing us that the things are going to intensify while the temperature is increasing in the projection. I think rehabilitation, the existing ones, and improve more, maybe new boreholes, and also the storage system is one thing. I think maybe active cooling systems might not be really important one. They are important ones, but might not be viable for our region. But a better shelter. We cannot keep animals longer in a fence only. We need a shelter, very good ones, to cool them down. That could be as a strategy. Okay, some of the things are already mentioned by my colleague. Rangeland management is very important. Smart rangeland management. It's already degraded. It's also, we advised to work on heat-resistant fodder species, like my colleague Bet also mentioned that one. So I think we used to do at ILRI, my former role from ILRI, we used to map different cultivars. Most of the time at ILRI, I used to work for the food crops, but we need to do the same more for the animal crops also. Heat resistant, we have to map. I mean, the climate projections are based on some assumptions, like if we are behaving and start protecting our environment, there is one projection for that one. Even if we start behaving well right now, we are going to pay for what we did before. That one is there. We are almost there for the first 2 degrees centigrade. The others are the worst scenarios. If we continue aggressively exploiting the planet, if we continue in that direction, there is another one. So we have to do these suitability maps for all these heat-resistant species across all of these projections. We don't know which direction we are going. You know, sometimes we behave good, sometimes, you know, what this world is revolving around. So animal health services and early warning, it has been mentioned so many times as a strategy is very important. Also heat-tolerant breeds, maybe it can be discussed by colleagues from the IGAD or ILRI more about it. Genetic improvement is necessary. I don't like GMO, but we don't have an option. We have to survive. We have to eat. We have to survive. I think that is the future, because animals should be able to cope up with the incoming changes. So we need some GMOs. I don't know. We have to improve in that direction. So in general, in combination, it involves combining infrastructures, ecosystem management, and early warning systems. If we bring this as a strategy, maybe it could help us to cope up.
Thank you for that, Bekele. Bet, what investments do we need to see? And I know ILRI has offices in Addis Ababa and maybe other countries. Do we need to see more labs, more community health workers, data systems? What do you think are the key priorities as far as investments are concerned?
At ILRI, that's International Livestock Research Institute, we have a unit, a project we call it Climate Hub, and they are looking at multiple interventions that can be used. So there is a team that's working on breeding animals. So we breed animals which are more heat tolerant and more productive in these arid, semi-arid areas, which we could say which fit in that environment much better. There's also a team that's looking at feeds and feed, and they have a tool that's used for assessing what feed varieties we need in a given environment, and that's ongoing. My own work looks at how we can use climate data to improve surveillance systems and improve things like vaccination coverage. And this is what we are calling vaccination calendars, so that each veterinary units could be in a district or a county can achieve a minimum level of coverage that's required for disease control. What is happening in our countries now is you have patchy vaccinations here and there, and that really doesn't help, because at the end of the day, it's a drop in an ocean. You vaccinate a few animals here, and when a disease comes, it sweeps across that population as if nothing was done. So we need a much more guided, controlled vaccination. So I've said about Climate Hub, which is really coordinating all these scientists to come together and bring together all these interventions in a given area. But one thing that I really still find a gap is at the community level, there is increasing population of humans, increasing animal populations, because when we get richer, we buy animals and we still bring back animals to that fragmented ecosystems. And so I think there's much more conversation that's needed at the community level in terms of optimizing stocking rates, so that if an event of a drought comes, then that loss isn't really felt that much higher than what is happening now. So we should also be able to educate communities on, you know, selling animals when you're given a warning that things are getting worse. We should be able to offload. When things are improving, we're able to buy. So that's beyond what we are doing on the research perspective. I think there's much more work that needs to be done at the community level to really improve resilience to climate.
Thank you. Dr. Guyo, I've seen the data that IGPALT has shared through IGAD. 40 million plus people in the Horn of Africa depend on livestock for survival. Looking at the GDP, the contribution the livestock makes in some IGAD member countries, from your data again, it contributes to about 50% plus to the GDP. But here again, we see livestock being framed in a way that is not very pleasing. So we are at the IGAD Media Awards. So I'd like to ask you, what do you think is the role of media in trying to frame the story of livestock? And because in journalism we say, if you don't frame your story, somebody else is going to do it for you. And clearly, others are doing it for us at the moment. What do you think media should do? Are we going to see more cooperation between organizations like yours in the media?
Okay, thank you very much. Let me try. It's a big question. We had a conversation last week with all the ministers of livestock across IGAD member state here in Addis Ababa. And it's the conversation about positioning livestock. What do we want as an investment across? What are the policy issues and barriers that countries have to work on, including the issues around facilitated transhumance? We have transhumance protocol that has been signed by countries, but is not fully domesticated. So this question keeps on coming back. But I think to answer your question, the number that you quoted is already problematic. It's only livestock where GDP contribution is static. Whether the animal grow, where people trade more in animals, the GDP contribution remain the same. The number of livestock population remain almost the same or non-existent in some countries. So for some of us who work in that space, we're already struggling with member state to at least, you cannot manage what you can't count. If you don't know the number of your livestock, then you just waste your time. So this conversation on data came strongly in the conversation with the ministers, because our GDP contribution, agricultural GDP contribution to agricultural GDP, national GDP, livestock population in the country, the spread of livestock. In today's technology, where you have all the technologies to assess. I have a role in the UK university as a supervisor of PhD student, and one of the PhD students, interestingly, in UK in Scotland, is counting an explored landmine in Vietnam, looking at the pattern that old landmines create on the ground. Immediately I said, why can't we use this technology to count camels? It's very easy to count because it's bigger than that landmine space. So what I'm trying to say is actually, we need to embed more, technologies, machine learning, AI, to first get the numbers right. So in IGAD now, I'm leading something called Livestock Start Flagship, which is trying to bring the prominence of number to that space. So in future, you might find ICPAL hosting a livestock statistics space where you can have an interactive map. You click on a country, you look at species distribution, the productive size of animal, death rate. We caught death rate recently in the drought, 13 million across Horn of Africa. And you ask, where is that number from? Nobody knows where the number came from. Is that problematic? So I think for the media fraternity, these are important questions, because this is what drives narrative. This is what drives investment. This is what drives policy positions. Until we crack that, we'll always be talking about drought. And I think lastly is the question of drought. We're seeing intensification of drought shocks on one side from the model, but our response architecture in the countries remain the same. We responded to drought in the same 50 years ago. Of drought, a president has to declare it as a national emergency, then it gets attention, it gets redistribution of budget. So if we really want to question these issues, why don't you embrace, a better innovation of pool fund, you create money that is actually accessible to countries and regions with drought, with 50% is accessible to people to do resilience investments on water, infrastructure and everything, and then maybe 40% to emergency and some percentage to recovery. Kenya did that, but the pot is not fully resourced. We have the regulation, but the money in that fund is not there. So to me, I think these are the critical questions that has to come to the light. And I think for the media guys, finally, is numbers of livestock trade in this region is very huge. We have the biggest exporter of livestock to the Gulf as IGAD member states. But then, if you look at the country level investment, we're not actually tapping into that opportunity of being a supplier of those animals. We're not taking advantage of that supply specification that is required from this region. So these are the important questions that one has to ask. What is the livestock sold in Kenya? What is the contribution? And then we start now working on the numbers that you mentioned in terms of contribution to GDP, to bigger things. Then we drive policy and we change the narrative. I think changing narrative takes a long process. We get in there, we need to question these numbers. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Guyo. And of course, I'm sure from now on we're going to see close collaboration between ICPAC and the media. So unfortunately, we are almost out of time. So Fahima, I'll give you an opportunity to give us your closing remarks. Now it's ladies first. I'm starting with her as we move this way.
Thank you, and I'm really happy, and I hope that one day I'm going to be on your TV. This is the first TV on pastoralism. Yes,
inshallah,
yes.
Inshallah.
Me, the last thing I want to say is livestock is not just part of the food system in our region, and it's the hard resilience. So we have to take care of it. So when I'm really happy to be on this panel with ICPAL, because in French it's ICPAL. And the only thing I'm going to say and repeat is heat-resistant seed and strong seed, and also, training between members in the IGAD regions.
Thank you. Let me go to Dr. Bekele. Dr. Guyo just spoke, so let me go there and then come this way.
Okay, as a final remark, I would like to say that where animals are losing productivity, as colleagues have mentioned, so heat waves are really weakening immunity systems, and water pasture demand is increasing, and it's going to also sharply increasing in the future. That is, at least we know what is going to happen, even if we start behaving very well. So I think we should work towards improving this issue, which we are going to issue the early warning to early action system and try to support the resilience of the livestock keepers and work together to make more heat resilient community in the region.
Thank you. Dr. Bet?
Yeah, I think we have discussed much, but I just say climate change is really a big thing now. It has been a big thing all the time, but you know, we need all of us to work together because the effects are much broader than what we see. You know, when I work on animal health, I fully understand that in addition to impacting on health of animals, it has major impacts on the ecosystem. And unless we team together and work jointly, people doing reforestation, reseeding of ecosystems, resilience, drought management, financing, small steps here and there will not really add too much until all of us come together to address this major challenge.
Thank you. Let me give it to the man from the largest county in Kenya, the final word.
Okay, thank you. I think for me the parting shot is that climate change is a problem without passport. It crosses frontiers uninvited, and I think we're in this problem together. As a student of ecology, we are told ecological boundaries are fluid, but then within that fluid boundaries, we have political boundaries which are rigid. That's why we have problem across member states. I think we need to embrace opportunities to open up the rigid political boundaries to accommodate the ecological realities of this region. And I think I mentioned Transhumance Protocol is one of those innovations that has worked in ECOWAS across 15 member states. It should work for us. And I think that means if we embrace, ratify the protocol, we have to have investment corridors for pastoralists. And each country has to put commensurate investment so that mobility as one of the traditional and oldest system for escaping episodic like drought is entrenched across long distance. And those corridors are very important. We're mapping all those corridors right now, and I hope at some point, as we wait for borderless seeds to work, research to come and save things, we use our traditional opportunities to expand the boundaries and enhance mobility. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have room for question and answer? Or we wrap up? We wrap up? Okay. I'm told everyone is looking forward to tonight's award. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all of you for your powerful insights, Dr. Bekele, Dr. Bet, Dr. Guyo and Fahim all the way from Djibouti. Let's give them another powerful round of applause. And thank you very much to the audience here. You've also been amazing, staying with us for the last 1 hour or so. So let me now hand over to our MC of the day. I think we have one more panel. Then we'll go straight to what you all have been waiting for, which is tonight's dinner. Thank you very much. Asanteni sana.